Well, problems with our physical problem with me, I thought, and when I went to see Dr. Danforth, I thought that would clear it up, and he took all the various tests and so forth, and then gave me a clean bill of health, and then referred us to you, which was a bit of a shocker.
How do you feel?
Well, if it can help in some way, then I think it's a very good thing. But I really don't understand what the problem is. We Kevin hasn't made love to me for 6 months now, you know, and whether it's because he's got someone else or...
Well, that's nonsense. Now, we've talked about that. It's nonsense.
Well,
so let's not get into that.
That's what you say.
Well, let's get to the problem rather than talk about something that doesn't exist, okay?
Well, what did you, in specifics, go to Dr. Danforth with? Now, exactly what happened, can you?
Well, I have been unable to, on several occasions, get an erection. And on those occasions when I've been able to do so, I've been not able to maintain the erection. And as I say, I thought it was a physical thing, you know, prostrate or some, you know, kind of thing, I don't know, whatever. But it turns out that there's nothing physically wrong, and so that's why we're here.
What's your emotional reaction to it?
Well, I guess I'm really very hurt, and I suppose pretty angry about it.
Well, why should it have happened to you, kind of a feeling, you mean? Or?
Yes. And, well, it first started, about 6 months ago, and looking back on it, the first instance seems to have been when they had an office party for him, and...
I just got a promotion.
Yes.
Oh, I see. And you were at a party?
Yes, and...
No, I was just there. She was not.
Yes, he was, yes. And he came back at about 2 o'clock in the morning, and having drunk quite a lot, and got into bed. I was half asleep by that time, and started to make love to me, and then, you know, just couldn't. Well, you know what those office parties are, and there are secretaries around and whatever. And I didn't really think about it then, except that every time he tried after that, the same thing happened, and then for 2 months...
Let's get the record straight. There is no other woman. Now, let's, you know, if we're going to solve this problem, Margaret, then let's solve the problem.
Well, I don't really have any other way of explaining it.
Well, then let's not bring up, you know, your fantasies about me and other women. I mean, admittedly, I have the physical difficulty, but if it is a psychological problem, then it takes, you know, two to tango, so part of the problem is yours as well as mine.
You really think he's running around, do you, Miss Ball?
Well, obviously, if she, you know, keeps bringing it up.
I really don't know. That's the only explanation that I can find. And for 23 years, we've had a very good relationship, and all of a sudden, there's nothing there.
All right. Now, what happened from your point of view?
Well, as, again, 6 weeks ago, I was made head of the sales department of the firm.
And how did you feel at that time?
Certainly not impotent, I'll tell you that. Quite good.
All right.
And if I may say so, I do a damn good job. And we had a party. Yeah. I came home, and I had a few to drink. Certainly not as much as she indicates. And I attempted to make love, but you know, perhaps I did have too much, and I figured, well, too much to drink. And the 2 or 3 times after that, in the succeeding days that we attempted to make love, the same thing occurred. Either I got an erection and it didn't maintain at all, or I didn't get one at all, and within the last 5 months, then I'd say what we've been doing is just strictly avoiding contact. You know, and it's just been really hell, because what we're doing is we're fighting every night. You know, the news, the 11 o'clock news comes on, and then that's the cue to start fighting. So you're drifting apart and irritable. Right. Something like that. And basically the relationship has reached a point where it's not even irritable anymore. It's just plain dull. But quite frankly, I feel a good deal of the problem is that since both the kids have been in school, we find that we don't really have anything to talk about. I mean, I'm not going to discuss my work, which would make no sense, and you know, Lord knows I don't want... Yes, what? Your hand went up. Yes, she kind of went, huh, or something. What?
Well, this is another thing. I mean, why can't he talk about his work to me? You know, I try and fill him in. When the children were home, he would come home in the evening, and we'd talk about the children, and we'd talk about what I'd done.
Turn towards him and tell him what you're saying. Go ahead. Can you?
And, well, I'd talk to you about the children, when you came home from work, and what I'd been doing during the day and things like that. And I still try and do that. And you would discuss your work to some extent and tell me what you'd been doing and what had happened at the office. And he can't even talk to me anymore.
Now, what's your view of this, Mr. Palmer?
Well, I feel that, don't get me wrong now, I mean, Margaret's been a wonderful wife, and we've had a good 23 years, mind you.
Okay.
Except the last 6 months, as I say, has been a problem. And quite frankly, I can't see coming home after the kind of responsible job I have to, listen to you, talk about whether or not the kids wrote, and if they wrote, having to listen to, what they've had to say beyond the point of what seems to me endurance.
I don't really like to get at him in an angry fashion because I know that doesn't solve any problems, and you just end up screaming and yelling at each other, and you get absolutely nowhere.
Now, you lost your erection and you failed with your wife after the promotion party.
Right.
And
there have been no affairs.
And no affairs, and you tried again.
Several times, 3 or 4 times, I would say.
And now you've left it alone.
For about...
Now, what input have you gotten about it? How are you explaining this to yourself?
Well, my best friend Jerry said I was in menopause, so I told him to take his Midol and go home. But then after the laugh, I started thinking maybe he's right,
Do you kind of have what, tired blood, or
should I just take 2 steams and it just goes away, I guess? No, I don't know. No, I mean, I feel fine. Well, I do, and again, I guess it's in my head, but I do feel when, like at, 4 o'clock, when the day's grinding down, and I've been at, top speed all day,
right?
And then I'm going to come home.
Yeah.
I start feeling tired. I start feeling fatigued,
You mentioned the word dull before.
Yes.
Things were kind of dull when you came home. Is this the kind of routine going on?
Well,
how can they be interesting if he won't say anything and if he just goes off into his own corner?
Nothing going with you all these days, in some fashion. Is that right?
yeah,
Yes.
the fire's going out, no question about it.
Now, let me ask a different kind of question. I want you to go back in your minds
All right.
to the last good sexual expression you had together.
I put down the newspaper, and I look, and she knows, and I don't have to say, and it's a nonverbal thing, and it was always good. I mean,
What about variety? Did you have any, or just go at it one favorite way?
we're not an X-rated movie, I guess.
Give me your account of the last good time. What went on from your point of view, Miss Paul? What did you do to make love?
Well, it's very much like Kevin says, and there's something, I guess, something sort of comfortable about it after that length of time.
Okay, right. And what would he do with you?
Well, recently I've been getting the feeling that he's just not all there. His mind would be off. Your mind would be off somewhere else and thinking about your work or whatever.
I resent the idea that it's my problem. I mean, the physical manifestation is my problem, but then you don't face the problem in that sense, physically.
How about variety? Was it very creative from your point of view, the way you made love?
Well, I guess not, no, but it was good the way it was.
Okay. Now, these days, let's suppose you were to make a romantic advance tonight, right? What would go on in your mind? You kind of...
Failure.
Don't want to touch it with a...
Do not pass go.
He doesn't even want to try anymore.
Well,
why doesn't he want to try anymore?
That's because it's, you fail so many times, and then it's no longer worth trying. Well, the whole thing is the whole situation is embarrassing.
Right.
I mean, let's face it, I can't cut the mustard, and that's what we're really, talking about here.
Now, let's talk about different portions of the problem for a moment, okay? Now, my understanding is that after an important experience where you got promoted and were feeling pretty good, but you had some alcohol in your system, right? You made a pass at your wife and you failed.
Right.
And you did what most guys would do. You tried again, but then you failed again and got pretty tense about it.
Right, because I hadn't been drinking the next
right.
And the next 3 times.
And since then you've been avoiding it because all you can think about is failing again. Does that make sense to you now, Ms. Palmer? You
Yes.
understand what he goes through now?
Yes.
I wanted you to understand, though, his vicious cycle that he's caught up in right now.
Mm-hmm.
Is there some way you can relate romantically without going to the negative experience of intercourse itself? Is there any way you can relate sensually or physically without having intercourse? What do you think about that? Could you?
Well, obviously, if it's like in making a sale, I mean, you perform better if you're operating without the pressure.
Without worrying about whether you're being a good salesman.
Good salesman or not, right?
Okay.
In other words, if you're concentrating on finishing that sale.
Yeah. Right.
Rather than on whether and how do I look. I mean, if you're worrying about how you look, then it doesn't. You're going to be fumbling.
Fair enough. Okay.
Is that what you're saying?
Okay. So let's suppose that we make an agreement that between now and the next time you come, next week, no intercourse. Just by agreement, no matter how excited or romantic or concerned you get, no intercourse. Because he's got to be kept away from having to go through something that he's anxious about. And the both of you need to get back to fun. It sounds to me as though you got a sex life that's either a routine or it's on the edge of work.
Mm.
Can you recall when you were courting or petting and all that? Not too far back in the Dark Ages, was it?
Seems like the Stone Age
Yes.
now.
Can you
It's a
recall?
long time ago. Yes, I think
Was
so.
it fun?
Yes.
Yeah.
Can you recall the
It's
fun you
all
had
right.
with
Yeah,
that?
sure. It was, yeah, it was all right.
And no intercourse was at stake, at least at the beginning, I presume.
No.
Right?
No.
Not in those days.
So no strings were attached.
Mhm.
Nobody had to perform. All right?
Right.
Mhm.
I would suggest that this is the way to go for now, if I can, take this kind of sort of educational approach with you. You need to enjoy rather than work. And if you can give a little fun to each other, particularly in this kind of, you're on the edge of a bad case of boredom. You're going to have a case of the blahs as a couple before too long unless you start to find some fun with each other. You used to have it with the kids around. And many couples go through this. When the youngsters are gone, we've got nothing to talk about. So it looks like you're in the communications racket just a little bit, but in the sexual zone in particular, let's try to have fun and hold off on the intercourse and see what happens. Let's just learn from it. Okay?
Okay.
All right, then we can get back in a week and follow up on this.
Okay. Thank you, Doctor.
Right.
How do you feel now about coming in? Is any change
Well,
in the mood?
Thank you,
it's a
Doctor.
little better now. It's
Yes.
as I say, it's basically
Talking some of this out isn't all.
Well, obviously, with a third person there, it's a little embarrassing at
But
first.
you talk with each other. Did you see that?
Yeah, I
Yes.
felt, I felt that the very fact that we've admitted that we have a problem, which was not easy to do.
Yeah. But you talked with each other and it helps, right?
Yeah.
So that's my commercial.
Okay.
Fair.
So.
Thank you.